Oh, yeah.
You're just gonna like get your coffee ready after we start.
I don't want to drink out of my thermos, but I'm gonna have to. I forgot my mug. Yeah! Live from the No, it's not. We're not there. We're at the BlackRock Executive Helipad today, Matt.
Really? Who are we waiting for there? Because Lord knows we didn't get sent somewhere.
I think we're waiting for Larry Fink's successor to fly in.
Oh. Just don't say ESG.
Aren't they busy succession planning?
Yeah.
It must be, right?
The S in ESG is not for succession.
It's the ESG industry's only weekly woke data podcast. Is that even true?
Yes.
Okay. And featuring analyst Holman, Matt Moscardi.
Oh, man.
In today's Eagle, Seagull, Goldfinch. See, I just solved ESG's crisis right there. I just redid it for them.
With 3 bird names?
Eagle, Seagull, Goldfinch. You know, it's the first time I've realized that I live in a land of seagulls. I never really realized that eagle and seagull is really, it's the same kind of thing.
Wow.
What's an eagle?
This is this is the insight that people come
What is
here
that?
for.
An electric gull? What is an eagle? What is an eagle?
Yeah. Imagine if there was an iGull, then it would be an Apple-owned gull.
In today's show called August 16th, 2023, ESG-ish headlines, an anti-woke update, and a word from our sponsor.
Yes, that is correct.
Our show today is being sponsored by S-Gage,
yes,
your ESG data solutions provider.
It is.
Paul will be stopping by later to talk about board size.
Not B-O-R-E-D. But B-O-A-R-D.
You don't have to make that joke every week. No, board. No,
I want to be clear to our audience what we're talking about.
I don't really care. All right, ready?
All right, let's do this thing. It's your favorite music.
I have some painfully boring ESG news headlines this week.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Just reel them in, baby.
Including a favor to the succession planning over at Discover Financial. You'll see what I mean. I've found their new CEO for that.
Oh, you
I'll
did?
Get to that later.
Oh, that's nice. It's nice of you.
VinFast. You heard of VinFast?
Never.
VinFast shares surge in NASDAQ debut. This is a Vietnamese electric vehicle maker, Matt. Their market cap is already bigger than Ford's and General Motors. And can I say...
Why?
I looked at all of our data. I looked at a bunch of MSCI data. This is the first company from Vietnam that I think we've ever talked about. Is that strange to you?
That might be true. Yeah.
I don't see them I don't see Vietnam anywhere represented, at least in the data set that we use.
And they went public via SPAC, right? So
they went via SPAC. Here's why I picked this company out, because they're a bit of an outlier, but then again, they're a bit of not of an outlier. But here's the part that excited me, because I'm a dork.
Yeah, sure.
It's Vietnamese in Asia, a market that has been well documented that does not include women in anything really, except for Malaysia. Did you know that Malaysia actually has a higher percentage of women on the board than the United States?
I did know that. Yeah. I did.
Yeah, Malaysia, the weird outlier, the weird Asian outlier. Okay. There are 6 directors on this new board at VinFast. 3 of them, Matt, including the CEO, are women.
Wow.
The CEO. Remember, I made this weird... Okay, granted, this is an Asian company, but I made a very strange prediction that there would be an Asian female CEO of an electric vehicle car maker this year. Does this count? Does this count? Do I win this prediction somehow?
I look, I'm going to say that I'm starting to feel like your predictions are real dubious.
Of course.
You somehow predicted everything.
This one proves it. Yeah. I'm just excited because I'm shocked that they're letting women run this. But here's the problem. Is that
are they really letting women run it?
No, it's an absolute it's a dictatorship. This company is owned, founded, controlled by Vietnam's richest man, Pham Nhat Vuong, who controls, after the listing, controls 99% of the company's ordinary shares.
All right.
But Okay, I know you're laughing.
Yeah,
but
it's not just me,
clearly
it's the audience.
Clearly, he controls everything. But look, I'm still going to be excited that half the board of women and the CEO is a woman. It's an outlier, so I'm just excited about it.
Well, you know what? You know what's really easy to do?
No,
have 100% female board when you own 99% of the shares. That's easy.
Still, he's doing it.
He can walk in the room and be like, "I don't care about your thoughts, so shelve them." And let's move on and do what I said.
Moving on, Ron DeSantis, pudding fingers, they call him. They call him Meatball Ron.
I like Meatball Ron. I like that. Pudding fingers is good, though. Is that your name?
No, pudding fingers refers to, I guess he was on he was doing one of his political things, a speech, whatever. He was talking to people, and people watched him eat pudding with his fingers.
I thought that
without
was
a utensil.
No, that was on a plane. He was on a
whatever.
plane.
Who cares?
And his staff watched him
as I was rambling and
stuttering
stuttering about this lack of utensil, I realized it doesn't matter where he was. He was eating pudding with his fingers.
That's true.
That's what matters.
But I like that are you naming him that? Like I just Ronnie Pudding
people
Fingers.
Call him pudding fingers.
That does sound like a mafia name. Yeah.
He says he has moved on and Disney should drop its lawsuit against him.
What?
He said to CNBC.
That's such a nice suggestion.
He said, quote, "We've basically moved on. They are suing the state of Florida. They are going to lose that lawsuit." What I would say is drop the lawsuit. This is despite many legal experts saying that the lawsuit brought by Disney has a very good chance of winning.
This is literally like a
it's a Trumpian move.
A 7-year-old who picked a fight with a high schooler, being
Trumpian.
As you're getting closer to the fight date, just being like, "Look, the smart thing for you to do would be to just quit right now because you're going to lose anyway. You might as well. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard."
Not to mention, might he lose the actual lawsuit? But as we know, all of his people are telling him. All the polls are telling him that they are sick of him attacking corporations.
Yes,
they're sick of the Republican Party with this anti-ESG, anti-woke nonsense. They're just sick of it. So good timing, Ron.
And hey, Ronnie. It's nice of you to ask Disney to drop their lawsuit when you took away the Reedy Creek improvement and replaced the board with a guy who says fluoride turns you gay, right? There's no way Disney's dropping this lawsuit. They are almost 100% chance to win, and it's real cute of you to putting finger your way into asking them to lose.
Wendy McMahon named President and CEO of CBS News and Stations and CBS Media Ventures, whatever the hell that is. I'm just bringing this up because we reported a few months ago that basically all the news, all the cable news, all the network news are run by women at this point. Talk about the glass cliffiest job, right?
Yeah, what an industry.
Right. It's an industry that all the blowhards on the right all call fake news, right? They all attack constantly. It's also a failing industry in the sense that viewership is dwindling year after year. So another woman named to us CEO of a news organization. And I want to add that this CBS is owned by Paramount Global.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's worth knowing that 63% of the Paramount Global board consists of women, and they control 80% of the power over there. Of course, a lot of that power is thanks to dictator Shari Redstone, but whatever. Well, it's still CBS News, still very much a female,
but Shari
forward enterprise.
Took it from Sumner, right? So this was a male,
absolutely, but
power.
Still.
The first thing apparently that Wendy McMahon has to deal with is they're talking about selling their entire broadcast studio in New York City and selling their studio assets. They're
that desperate for cash.
They're putting basically half of CBS up for sale. They're just I
was gonna say
so congratulations on the job.
Wouldn't you sell all the other studios first? Isn't that the one you want to keep?
Apparently not. No, I think they're
okay. Have fun with that. So yeah, another glass cliff scenario in the news organizations. Up next, Discover Financial CEO Roger Hochschild resigns as board vows renewed compliance focus. Okay, that's the key.
Oh, really?
Okay.
That's funny.
Interim board member who's only been on the board for a few months, John Owen, will take over as interim CEO.
Oh, that was fast.
This move, and let's be real, he hasn't resigned. I mean, he's been fired. I mean, let's just be real about it. This move comes just weeks after Discover announced it would pause share buybacks amid an internal review of compliance, risk management, and corporate governance. Discover is talking with regulators over how it misclassified some of its credit cards.
Oops. Yeah.
Separately, Discover said it received a proposed consent order from the FDIC tied to a consumer compliance issue. This is the second time in a year the company had to suspend share buybacks over compliance concerns. Discover last year temporarily paused buybacks after it started an internal investigation into practices within its student loan servicing businesses. So all that's going on at Discover Financial, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the board. According to Freeflow Analytics.
Ooh, another sponsor.
Yeah. CEO Roger Hochschild actually controlled 25% of the influence, but there was a power trio, a long-tenured power trio of directors that actually controlled 41% of influence. They were all appointed in 2007. They seem to be the three people running this board, actually. That's Greg Case, Mary Bush, and Jeff Aronin. And before I get to tell you who should be the next CEO, Matt, shareholders didn't seem to care about any of this. I looked at the shareholder votes.
Really?
Despite all this going on, and this is a lot, right? I mean,
you said
enough
a lot
that,
of things, like fraudy things.
Enough that it led to them getting rid of their CEO. The shareholders voted for everybody. Even the CEO only got 1% of votes against him. Only 1%. So no shareholders are paying attention at Discover Financial. So, does this new compliance focus mean this is clearly a glass or brown cliff alert, right? It has to be, right? Doesn't this have to be a woman or
the new
a
CEO?
non-white man taking over CEO?
Yeah,
It has to be.
I mean,
Who else?
This is classic cleanup.
Classic glass cliff moment.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're due. Their executive committee is 8 white dudes and a lawyer named Hope.
Oh, really?
That's their entire, yeah. So they're actually due for a glass cliff scenario. There is one, I was looking at first I looked at the internal candidates. There was actually a president of payment services, Diane Offerins, but she just stepped down at the end of June. And really, do you want an internal hire after all this nonsense?
No, you need to get out, yeah.
So I searched partly through our data, partly just through some MSCI data,
Google.
S-Gauge, whatever you want to call it, Google. I found the next CEO of Discover Financial.
Ooh.
Want to know who it is?
Is this a prediction? Do we need like a prediction
Yeah,
alert?
sure.
All right.
Give me your prediction music.
Here's your prediction music.
Oh, I like it. This is named executive officer at MasterCard. She is the chief risk officer, Karen Griffin at MasterCard. She's a member of MasterCard's executive leadership team. For the past 8 years, she served as chief compliance officer. Remember,
that's good.
The board
They need
at
that.
Discover Financial is vowing renewed compliance focus. Karen Griffin, prior to joining MasterCard in 2014, Karen served as Chief Compliance Officer for Visa.
Wow, look at
Chief
that.
Compliance Officer at both Visa and MasterCard. How is she not the next CEO of Discover Financial?
Probably
Karen Griffin,
because
you heard it here first.
She's not directly associated with the company somehow. Like we have to run a network analysis to see like whether she golfs with them. Because if she does,
You
then
do
she's
that-
a shoe-in.
You do that and get back to me on Friday because really, I don't know how it's not Karen Griffin. And you're welcome, Discover. I just did your CEO.
Really
succession
amazing
planning for
work.
you.
I love that we can do that kind of work for companies now.
You know about this one?
Do
young environmentalists in Montana won a huge landmark climate change
I
ruling.
do know
right?
this one. Yeah, this is a good one.
It marks the first time a court in the U.S. has declared that a government has a constitutional duty to protect people from climate change.
Yeah, who would have thought? What a ruling.
And part of this is a bit odd because Montana happens to have a highly protective constitution by refusing to consider it's highly protective to the environment.
Yeah.
The Montana Constitution, right? So it's already a bit of an outlier. But the judge ruled that this that it violated Montana's constitution by refusing to consider the impacts of greenhouse gas emissions when they've approved coal mines, oil drilling, and new power plants. Do you see what I'm saying here?
I do see this. And Montana put themselves on the map earlier this year with a blocking of ESG investing. They called it a pro-freedom, pro-free enterprise. Blocking of ESG. That was pro-freedom. And they changed the procurement rules such that, I think it was Montana, you cannot consider the environment when building a thing. That was like their new rule, right? So,
well, according to if this decision stands, Montana officials will no longer be able to legally ignore the huge contributions to global warming made by fossil fuels. Although, whether they're going to do anything about these emissions, that's the question, right? Like they just because they can't ignore it, does it mean that this ruling will actually have a positive effect? I don't know.
I don't know. This seems like it's going to go to the Supreme Court. It seems like they're going to argue you don't have a constitutional right to understand this, and then like Clarence Thomas will weigh in.
Yeah, and I think what its impact eventually will be much more than just the state of Montana, right? Because other states will pick up on this, and then you're right, it'll eventually go to a federal level.
If it goes to the federal level, then it will set a federal precedent, which will mean that like other states can use it, and other environmental activists can use it. Absolutely.
Next, special counsel Jack Smith. You know who Jack Smith is.
Yeah. Oh, laughing.
Obtained an extraordinary array of data from Twitter about Donald Trump's account, from direct messages to draft tweets to location data, newly unsealed court filings reveal.
Wow, location data.
But it took a bruising battle with Twitter's attorneys. In fact, a judge in the case held Twitter in contempt of court back in February. And the judge also was, I guess, yelling at Twitter for taking extraordinary and apparently unprecedented steps to give Trump advance notice about the search warrant. So, is there more going to come from this story? Is this where the story ends about Twitter? Because this is a bit of an outlier on our corporate news, right?
It depends on if we decide that judge is woke, and Elon Musk starts tweeting at the judge that they're a woke jerk or something. This just seems Elon doesn't pay his rent. Like, I feel like, responding to a subpoena is not really something that he's going to do. That's like even lower down on the list than like pay rent.
Well, but it's not that they didn't respond to it. They fought the subpoena quite vigorously. And again,
except that they were held in contempt because they refused to give it up even after they were found that they had to turn it over. Right? Like it's a warrant. If it's a legally executed warrant. Here's the thing I don't understand about like the anti-woke thing or the Twitter thing. It's like, if you believe in the rule of law, then wouldn't a legally executed warrant sort of be the rule of law that you followed? I don't.
Well, it's just once again that Elon Musk is just a goofball, which we all know, because
doesn't care. He does what he wants.
Because despite the fact that he proclaims Twitter, now known as X, to be like a free speech absolutist company, he does say repeatedly that he respects the rule of law in whatever jurisdiction that Twitter or X operates, right? So if they're banning free speech over there in India or wherever, he doesn't care because that's the rule of law. So you're right. He is just constantly kind of a hypocritical goofball, because you would think in this scenario he would just comply to the law. I don't know. I just bring this up because I don't know. And again, Twitter is a private company. It's a little bit different than the companies that we usually cover here. I just don't know if does this have any future ramifications for the company.
I think it has more future ramifications for judges that went to Bryn Mawr, which is where the judge went.
Is that right?
For Beryl Howell, went to Bryn Mawr for bachelor's, and was appointed by Barack Obama. So I'm gonna guess that like this is one of those like, oh, she's a woke liberal justice things. That's how it's gonna go.
There is a not so secret thread or an undercurrent to a lot of the stories we cover here. And you're right to point out that the judge is a woman. The judge also in Montana is a woman. I was working on a little study. They were talking about 8 states, the U.S. states, that now offer free lunch to any student, to anyone K through 12, right? And I was looking at the leadership of those 8 states. 4 of them are women, despite the fact that, less than, I think it's like 12% of governors are held by women. So there is a pattern here with women in leadership, right? Which is they seem to just do good shit. Right? And I guess the anti-woke will come out and complain and get all hand-wringy and get scared. But
look, I've been talking a lot about like off air to my wife and to I was talking to Jesse about it the other day. And I know men have seemed to define masculinity as like, you are weaker than me. It's like in opposition to somebody else. Like it's always like, I am this and you are that. And there's like, you just build these silos and say, oh, you're a woman, therefore you do X, Y, and Z, and I'm a man, and therefore I do X, Y, and Z. Like defining masculinity by tasks. But I think it's time to stop defining masculinity by tasks and allow women to do the things that we men used to define as ours, like run states and rule on shit. Because this is what happens. Like you get different decisions, you get thoughtful decisions, you get like stakeholders are actually satisfied.
That's where you just lost. You lost Vivek.
I did. Oh,
you said stakeholder.
He's not going to come back on anymore.
And finally, here's a report out of Bloomberg. Bankers hate saying ESG, but are hardwiring it into finance. About 2/3 of respondents in a survey said the anti-ESG movement that started last year will force firms to stop using those 3 letters in conversations with clients. However, they'll continue to incorporate ESG metrics in their business. So we're really just... this makes me laugh because all they're going to do is just drop using the acronym. That's what we've come to.
But that's what we said. We said on this show.
It's so funny to me.
This show is about to be 4 years old, and almost 4 years ago, we wanted to kill the acronym because it was pointless and misleading.
We could have saved the whole industry. All this nonsense.
All the nonsense would have disappeared. We just said it's data. We said that 4 years ago, and we said it when we were both at MSCI and before that, right? And now it's like, yeah, of course, they're just going to stop saying ESG, but you cannot unsee the data. There's way too much of it, and it's got too many uses. It's not just for greenwashing, people. It's data.
You over marketed a concept that you weren't really clear about in the first place, and then eventually, of course, you got people pissed off. Just like if you over marketed cigarettes to be a great lifestyle choice, right? I mean, you got to like calm down a little bit on the marketing.
But that's the thing. It isn't just for the marketing and the greenwashing. Actually, I said this to a reporter the other day. The anti-woke movement is actually really good. It's cathartic because what it's showing you is the sort of like the snowflakes on the ESG side who never were that convicted about the data or didn't know how to use it or built a quick product to make a quick buck. They're all the ones. Vanguard, you think Vanguard was like real serious about ESG when they joined the Net Zero Alliance? They had no fucking interest. They were joining the alliance because that's where all the clients were and they thought they had to be a part of the conversation. And they were the first to drop themselves out. And now what? Like that basically shows that they never were serious about it. But everybody who was serious about it, this article proves it, is rewired to not say ESG because they're using it. They're just doing it anyway. They were just doing it.
Before I move on to you, Matt, I'm going to repeat my favorite part of this story. 2/3 of respondents said that firms will stop saying ESG but keep doing it. I just think it's so stupid.
It is
The whole thing is so dumb.
All right, I have some news, and not too much of it.
Thank God.
My news is, hey, I just noticed that news. In which I like to note the stories where people just notice things that have been happening for a while, including this.
Okay.
Popular sweets brand risks boycott after woke LGBT plus packaging makeover. The brand in question here in this article is Skittles, whose tagline forever has been "Taste the Rainbow."
I was gonna say before you even were gonna begin, I was like, because I love Skittles. It's rainbow colored candy.
It's rainbow. It's just rainbows, and it's so not like woke to like Skittles that like Marshawn Lynch would throw Skittles as he scored touch. I mean, like it was the thing, right? Like there's no one anti-Skittle except for now that what they've done since 2017 is change their package from a rainbow to a gray, to like a black and white package during Pride Month. Like it's this like whitish grayish, like no colory kind of outline.
Sure.
In order to say there's only one rainbow that we're celebrating this month. That was like,
I like it.
It was a clever little tagline.
Yeah.
And the anti-woke just realized that this is happening.
Oh.
They just realized. They apparently are very unhappy, and they're talking about boycotting Skittles now.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they're going to boycott Skittles.
They're going to boycott Skittles. That's so cute.
Skittles is owned by the Mars Corporation, which is the fourth largest private company in the U.S. So we don't really cover them a lot. Like our sponsors don't have a lot of data on Mars. I did find, though, using good friends of ours, a site called Goods Unite Us, that Mars is real woke. 67% of their political donations in the last 2 years have gone to Democrats. So they are a woke corporation for sure. But they've been doing this since
just by giving to give it to Democrats makes you woke. That's it.
Yeah, isn't that half of it, right? Isn't that what we're talking about?
I've met a lot of Democrats. They don't all seem that woke to me.
No, I agree. I mean, most of all the Democrats in Congress are age 69 and up, right?
Yeah, they're all like multi-millionaires. Yeah, I don't
How
feel
woke are you?
So woke, yeah.
But yeah, I just love that they like woke up yesterday and they were like, oh my God, they like gays at Skittles? It's a rainbow package.
To all the Strive fans listening to the show, and now that you hate Skittles, you should call us, because I'll give you a long list of things you can know.
I love that.
It's not just Skittles.
We should start generating that list just for fun anyway. All the things that you should never buy and see. Yeah,
which is basically everything.
How useful it is.
Because I'm not really sure what's not woke anymore. Other than there's a couple. There's like Shotgun Soup Company. There's like big man muscle. Milk company. I don't know. There's like a couple of anti-woke companies, but
like if you go to Public Square, there are supplement companies that make like supplements, and they advertise it's like organic sourced,
big
fair
white
trade.
Toilet paper company.
There's a group called like 7 Week Coffee or something.
Neo-Nazi vegan burgers.
7 Week Coffee is like in the anti-woke, like we are all about the right to life and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And they fair trade their coffee, right? Like, isn't that woke? Or are we talking?
My favorite kind of company is I love anti-choice men running coffee companies.
Yeah, that's what I like. That's all I look for. In other, you just noticed that news. Here's a headline: NYC pensions seek to dismiss lawsuit over fossil fuel stakes.
Oh yeah, tell me about this one.
So this is from the great Sajal Kashan at Bloomberg. Apparently, the Americans for Fair Treatment, which is an anti-woke oil front, they sued the New York City pensions. They found like 3 pensioners in New York City, and they co-signed a lawsuit because New York City pensions largely divested from fossil fuels, and they sued them, saying you are bucking your fiduciary duty. That's what they said. You shouldn't be allowed to divest from these companies. But in the lawsuit response, where New York City pensions are looking to throw out the case, first of all, they point out the lunacy of 3 out of 60, like 69,000 or 600,000
I was going to say, what did they find? Like the 3 last people in New York City who still support like Giuliani?
It's literally like there's 3 people they could find to co-sign the lawsuit out of 600,000. It was like some absurdly small number. But in the lawsuit itself, where they're looking the motion to dismiss, they point out this, quote, the total lack of precedent supporting plaintiff's legal theory is no mere happenstance. Public pension funds exercise judgment every day about which companies and industries to invest in or not. In fact, Texas divested from pornography in 2006. Tennessee divested from marijuana in 2019. Those decisions and countless other discretionary decisions public pension funds make daily do not end up in court because courts are not the right place to challenge them.
Well, let's be honest, Matt. Everything you don't invest in your portfolio is really everything you're divesting in,
Yes,
no?
that's correct. If you choose not to invest in something, you divested from it.
Yeah, I mean, come on. What are we talking about here? They're just decisions.
And the lawsuit in this case is saying, like, you've bucked your fiduciary duty, but it's like they didn't notice and just now are noticing that like anti-woke places have not invested in things that they don't like marijuana and pornography. Like Texas doesn't invest in pornography. Can't you argue there's no bigger growth industry as we move to AI and like immersive technology than porn? There's no bigger growth industry than that.
Plus, isn't it a bit cruel? Like Tennessee, home of Nashville and Memphis. Like, come on, you're not investing in weed. Come on, what are we doing? I can't imagine Nashville without the waft of weed. That just doesn't seem fair.
And my third story here. Here's the headline. Republican-controlled states like Oklahoma are rushing to invest in clean energy, even as conservative groups push for more oil and gas.
Well, this is the point we've always made, right? I mean, why not just make more money? Why not just make money off of this? Isn't that the whole point anyway about fiduciary duty and pro-shareholder blah, 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 blah?
Well, you've been harping on this for a while, but just as a reminder here, Oklahoma, which they name in the headline, did come out with they called it the energy discrimination list, and they blacklisted working with certain asset managers and banks that financial companies that the state's no longer allowed to work with because they don't invest in, or they don't like how they talk about or invest in or think about oil and gas companies. And they listed 13 companies. This was in May of this year. It was the Energy Discrimination Elimination Act.
Oh,
that's what they called it. Yeah,
that sounds like an enema.
I think it kind of is. And
I love how
now these hypocritical assholes are rushing into clean energy.
I love how like the one thing that we all learn, even for those of us who don't know anything about investing, is divestment. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
A diverse portfolio where you invest into many. What is the word I'm looking for?
It's your diversification.
A diversification of your portfolio, right? It's like the one thing that we all learn. Like you don't put everything into one industry, into one type of stock. And I love now that the modern day Republican, the modern day GOP, their whole thing is to eliminate all industry from your state but one, basically. Let's not look long term at all. Let's ignore everybody's warnings and just stick right here with this one industry.
No, I mean, Sagel's article points out very clearly that those are political talking points, and even as they pass the legislation, we talked about here last week, but before also, that this is kabuki theater to the nth degree, because
just like Ron DeSantis,
even when they ban ESG, the language is no ESG, scores, ratings, whatever. However, you can use ESG if it's material, right?
I was gonna say it's what we talk about Strive all the time. Vivek and Strive is that it's a ESG company pretending that it's anti-ESG. It uses ESG data. Yeah, it's all theater.
I told my wife about Second Life, which was the ETFs that they just closed that were anti-woke ETFs. One was like the America Defended Fund, and it was like a gun, supporting company index or something. And I told her like, oh yeah, this company created their own ratings and then made these ETFs, and they now have to fold because no one's investing. And she's like, isn't that called ESG? Isn't that just what they did? I said, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm glad you know what I do.
Yeah.
And finally, in my list, here's the headline: an embarrassingly simple solution for industrial emissions. This made me giggle, because that solution that they're talking about, that they just noticed, that might actually save us from a tremendous amount of emissions, is called thermal batteries.
What's that?
They effectively use the same technology from a toaster, which is
now I'm listening.
Heated
I love
coils,
a toaster. Yeah,
and heat capturing bricks. That is, quote, a version of a system developed for use alongside blast furnaces about 2 centuries ago.
Oh, wow.
They heat these bricks up, and the bricks hold the heat with a 1% loss for days. They hold the heat, and it's at like 1,500 degrees Celsius. This is after earlier this year, I got a solid laugh out of the idea that there was a revival of, quote, wind-powered shipping, otherwise known as sailboats, for shipping things around the We are just now noticing that stuff that we did hundreds of years ago actually just have less carbon.
Explain this to me. In what application would one use a thermal battery? What does this mean?
So,
it's preventing the heat from escaping a battery?
Well,
is that it?
So if you operate a smelter, right? Like you need to smelt,
which I do. So yeah,
you do. That's what you're going to do after this. If you were to operate a smelter, you need a tremendous amount of heat to melt the metals and then configure them and like whatever you do. It's heat. It requires heat.
Yeah.
Most of that heat comes from burning coal or fossil fuels, which releases a tremendous amount of heat too. What they're suggesting is effectively you can capture that heat in a thermal battery, and you can keep it warm and just reuse the heat from the battery to melt shit.
Wow. I mean, I'm glad this is something they're discovering, but that it took them this long to rediscover it.
Dude, we rediscovered this 200 years later.
It does seem so simple.
In fact,
it does seem so simple.
There's a massive. There's been a. The company that they interviewed for this article, they just said they just got like $60 million in funding. They're working with like Saudi Aramco, like major corporations are working with them. Their CEO just came out and said it's actually that is a quote, embarrassingly simple, our technology. Yeah. Right. Like because he's basically like, we've been able to do this forever. I don't know why no one's done this, and we might be able to capture or avoid tremendous amounts of carbon and keep doing stuff simply by using bricks that we've had for hundreds of years.
Before we move over to Paul, I'll just say that sounds very woke to me. I don't know. It just sounds too smart. It just sounds too...
I mean, bricks are woke now, right?
It's too much. All right.
So let's let Paul in. Yeah, Paul from S-Gage, the great Paul, is going to talk. What's he talking about today? He's talking about
board size. Oh, why can't he just tell us?
All right, Paul,
let him talk.
Tell us what you're talking about. Go.
Hello there. Paul Hodgson here with S-Gage Statistic of the Week. This week we're going to look at board size, comparing both the Russell 3000 and the S&P 500. So one of the big differences is the median number of directors between the two indices. The median number of directors in the S&P 500 is 11, while in the Russell 3000 it's 9, which kind of makes sense. More complicated companies to run would need more board members and a wider range of expertise potentially, so it kind of makes sense as far as that's concerned. There are also a lot more boards with more than 12 directors, for example, in the S&P 500 than there are in the Russell 3000. There's only 6.6% in the Russell 3000, whereas there's 17.3% in the S&P 500. Another thing to note is that board size has changed very little since 2018, which was the year S-Gage started collecting statistics for this kind of data. And really, I mean, the medians are the same, 9 for the Russell 3000, and 11 for the S&P 500. Although there has been a bit of a shift towards larger boards. In the S&P 500, certainly, back in 2018, there was only 15.8% of boards had more than 12, whereas if you remember in 2023, it was 17.3. And there's even been some small shift in the Russell 3000 to those very large boards, which are often banks and or bank holding companies. So that is the picture of board size at the moment and back in 2018. And I guess what we need to remember is that bigger is not always better. Better is always better. And next week we are going to have a look at the frequency of board meetings and do a similar comparison between the S&P 500 and the Russell 3000. So this is Paul Hodgson signing off with S-Gage Statistic of the Week. Bye-bye.
So thank you, Paul, for that. Before I just sign us out, because the show is going to be 7 hours long if I don't.
Why are we talking so much today?
We were just talking in pre-production about, you had a great turn of phrase, which was, why don't people use like freeflowanalytics.com data or SGauge data to create board vacancies? Yeah. And it strikes me listening to Paul that if the median board at the S&P 500 is 11 people strong and it hasn't changed in 5 years, it basically doesn't change at all. That is, roughly 6,000 people that have steady state sort of size jobs. Like it's like think of the NFL, right? There are only 52 people per team. And there's 30 teams. That's it. That's all you get. So if we know that, then why shouldn't we be creating vacancies in order to actually improve the teams? Like, why do we think of it as aggressive to vote against somebody when we should be thinking of it as creating an opportunity to improve that team?
Yeah, because there is high turnover. There is high turnover in general in the corporate space. So it's not unusual for directors and executives to be changing and leaving and all this stuff. So, absolutely, create a vacancy. We should see it as an opportunity to find a more diverse, viewpoint, a more diverse skill set, whatever you want to call it.
So, thank you, Paul, for reminding us that board sizes mean there's an opportunity to flip the idiots and replace them with something good. That's all we got. That's Damion Rollis. I am your analyst hole, Matt Moscardi. We are Free Float. That was Woke Wednesday for the 16th of August. Already the 16th of August. We will be back again on Friday with a wrap of the week. Hopefully, if I have someone to watch my kids. I might have to do it at home, but we'll be back then. Until then, goodbye.